It's 8:54 right now. Welcome back to Great Day and welcome back to the show. Kim Baer is here, attorney, as we're talking about things that are all legal. And one of the things we want to talk about here this morning is why people shouldn't be afraid to ask an attorney, how much is that going to cost? Because that seems to be the biggest hang-up.
Exactly. What we often see is people will come in and they've already signed that lease, they've already signed that contract, and they did it without calling an attorney because they didn't want a big legal bill.
Right.
And now there's a problem and they're trying to see if we can help them either get out of it or change it, and we're kind of stuck. So one of the things that I encourage people to do is remember that lawyers are in the service industry and we're here to serve you. So call us beforehand and say, hey, I've got a 3-page contract, I've got a 3-page lease. How much would you charge me to review it? And almost all lawyers would be happy to say, okay, I'll charge you for an hour of time. And then if there are a lot of issues, we can go from there. But that way you can budget for the cost, you can get the legal advice up front, which is really key. So.
I was going to say, so what are some incidences that we should definitely be calling our lawyer and saying, hey, we need your help?
Well, so another example is I recently was working with a contractor, and when I went to write in the check, I noticed that he wasn't a company. So I said, you know, why aren't you a company? And he said, oh, I don't have enough money for that. It's too expensive.
And again, we've heard both sides of that too, saying the company's not big enough. You don't want to form a corporation because then you got to do a bunch of other paperwork, and it's not worth it. Is it worth it to make your business a company?
Well, and those are common mistakes that people don't realize, that you can set up an LLC for, I think we charge $350.
And why would you set up an LLC?
And that's a good question. So let's say that you make widgets and you're selling your widgets and you think, okay, what could possibly go wrong? Well, if the widget explodes and kills somebody, you're liable. And you're personally liable if you don't have a company. Let's say that you've got a little shop and you think, I don't want the added hassle. I don't want to have to file an extra tax return, so I'm just going to be a sole proprietor. And somebody falls coming into your business and they break their leg. Let's say it's a spiral fracture and now they're going to have a permanent limp. If you don't have enough insurance to cover that, you're personally liable. And the nice thing about setting up a limited liability company is it gives you a shield, so it's your company that's liable, not you. It protects your personal assets. But also for a limited liability company, you don't need to file another tax return. All of that goes on your personal tax return. It does. It does. See?
I was told the opposite.
Nope. No. If you're a C Corp or an S Corp, then there's additional paperwork, there's issues with regard to other tax returns. And in those issues, we always say, if you think you might need to be an S or a C, let's sit down and talk with your accountant so we can make sure we get it right. But for a simple limited liability company, for $350, and $50 of that goes to the Secretary of State, you can set up an LLC. I mean, we do it.
Now, is that annually or just a one-time charge?
Oh, it's a one-time charge. And then we're more than happy to teach people. You have to file an annual, a biannual report, and that's something you can do yourself. So it's $350 for a one-member LLC. It gets a little bit more expensive if there are a couple of people, because now we've got to do an operating agreement. But it's people are shocked when we tell them that that's the charge, because they think it's a couple $1,000s, and they also think they don't need it.
So why should I be going to a lawyer to do something like this instead of going to maybe like LegalZoom.com?
Well, I haven't looked recently to see what LegalZoom.com is charging, but I think it's comparable. And so the nice thing is we're here in Iowa. We know Iowa law. We know what's required, and we know how the process works. So not only are we going to get you set up, but we're also going to teach you what you need to do in the next couple years. And when you sit down with us to set up a limited liability company, we're also going to walk you through the things you need to be doing so that you don't go outside of the LLC. So for instance, one of the tips that we give people, when you're at the grocery store and you're buying your milk, do not use your limited liability account to buy your milk. You need to keep the assets separate. Exactly. Because if I'm representing the person who fell on your doorstep and has a spiral fracture, I'm going to try and look to see, do you really treat that limited liability company as a separate entity? In other words, do you commingle money? Do you, use the checkbook for all sorts of inappropriate things? So we sit down with people when we're setting it up and also walk them through the important steps they need to take to make sure that they're truly going to be protected.
And that's something you probably wouldn't get if you were
I don't think you would get it with, I don't think you'd get it with LegalZoom.
Let's say you're running for president and your charity is receiving money from a foreign event. Never mind.
You had me worried there.
Thank you, Hillary. We'll take your questions at another time.
All right, now what about people that, they're going to be heading, although we're just ending school in some areas here, August's going to roll around here real soon, and people have to sign lease agreements.
Right.
Things like this.
Exactly.
Would they need a lawyer before they
For a
sign
lease agreement?
Before they
It
sign a
depends.
lease?
I went not for a residential lease. Those
Okay.
things are
Okay.
going to be pretty standard. Let me give you an example. I have a client who I've handled lots of business issues for her. She decided that she would sign her commercial lease for her business herself. Didn't want to incur the legal fee of talking to me. Okay, I understand that. But then I was the first person that got the call when the air conditioner went down, and her landlord said, "Well, you have to replace it." She said, $8,000, I have to replace it? What happens when I move? You're going to keep the air conditioner.
Right.
Right.
Now, that's something we could have negotiated up front, but because she already signed the lease, she was stuck. So there are there are all sorts of things that for an hour of time I can go through and say, here's something you should negotiate, here's something we should do, here's a, let's say that you're looking at a location and you're thinking, okay, this would be my dream location. What happens if you sign the lease and then you can't get the proper zoning? Guess what? You're stuck. So you
Right.
need to give yourself an out in the lease. So that's just one example.
There's a lot of things that we just don't naturally think about, but you guys are trained to look for those specific
Exactly, exactly. Restaurants these days, a big deal is grease traps.
Yeah,
you
I've heard.
Yeah, and they can cost you $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. And if you didn't think about that up front and you've already signed the lease, now you're on the hook for the lease and the cost of a new grease trap.
Yeah, so before you sign something, you might want to run through your head, do I need to speak with an attorney before I sign this? And you would be the person to talk to.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to somebody about that, or call your own attorney if you've got somebody that you use, and make sure just to ask them up front, how much is it going to cost? Because that way
You guys wouldn't be offended.
No,
See, that's what people are, I don't want to ask them that because then
That's
they'll get
right.
mad.
We are in the service industry. We're here. We have a fiduciary duty to our clients, and I would much rather have somebody come in with the legal issue up front, so we can try and deal with it, because it's heartbreaking when somebody comes in and you have to tell them the bad news. You're stuck. You signed it. I can't do anything for you.
All right, so
Right.
how do people get a hold of you in case they want to get some more information?
Sure. It's real easy. 515-INJURED. We're across the street from Vets Auditorium on 5th Avenue. We handle lots of different things, so just give us a call and come on in.
You just gave that address and people just went, again, like we said last time, oh, that place, that's
Yeah.
right. You know exactly where it is.
Yes,
Wonderful.
exactly.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
It is 2 minutes past 9 o'clock. We'll be right back. You're watching Great Day Live on KCWI.